Years after Mrs. Kala gave birth to her identical twin daughters, fate dealt her a cruel hand. Her husband, the pillar of her household, died under horrifying circumstances that left the village whispering for weeks. With his absence, her once vibrant home grew silent, and the weight of survival fell squarely on her frail shoulders. Day by day, she toiled to care for her daughters, but life was relentless. Poverty clung to her like a shadow, gnawing at her hopes and leaving her desperate for a way out. Frustration swelled within her like a storm ready to burst. One fateful day, she confided in her closest friend, revealing a plan so unthinkable it caused even the most hardened soul to flinch. She intended to sell her daughters. "They are my burden and my curse," she wept. "If I set them free, perhaps I too can breathe again." Her friend, shaken but empathetic, urged caution. "Kala, before you walk this path of no return, consult the gods. Seek the truth of their destinies. Perhaps their futures hold more than your eyes can see." Those words lodged in Mrs. Kala's mind, stirring a fragile hope. Reluctantly, she agreed. If the fates deemed her daughters unremarkable, she would follow through with her plan. When the day came, she journeyed to the oracle's dwelling, a place thick with the scent of burning herbs and heavy with an air of mystique. The oracle master, his voice deep and shrouded in layers of wisdom, studied her solemnly. "Though they are twins, they walk two different paths," he intoned, his words like drops of ice water on a parched tongue. "One will rise, blessed by the gods, while the other will not." Mrs. Kala leaned forward, her heart a drumbeat of anticipation. "Which one, master? Tell me, so I may make my choice." But the oracle did not grant her the clarity she sought. Instead, he delivered a cryptic test. "The one who greets you first shall hold the greater destiny. Watch carefully." The journey home was both exhilarating and terrifying for Mrs. Kala. At last, a path to her freedom lay ahead. As she neared her home, her daughters, Taiwo and Kenny, spotted her from afar. Their matching faces lit up with joy as they sprinted toward her, their laughter ringing through the air. Overwhelmed by the scene, Mrs. Kala stood frozen as they embraced her, one after the other. It wasn't until they were all safely inside the house that she realized her grave mistake. She had failed to note which twin had greeted her first. The prophecy now dangled like a cruel riddle, taunting her at every turn. Frustration twisted her thoughts into knots, and bitterness seeped into her soul. Determined to decipher their destinies, Mrs. Kala began scrutinizing her daughters' every move. It didn't take long for their personalities to shine through like sunlight splitting through the clouds. Kenny, the mischievous firecracker, was ambitious but reckless. She defied authority with the zeal of a storm, often leaving chaos in her wake. Taiwo, in contrast, was calm and dutiful, with a heart as gentle as a stream in spring. Their differences were like night and day. Kenny spent her days nurturing a quiet friendship with Kasali, a boy she had known since childhood. Mrs. Kala often warns Kenny to stop being friends with Kasali. Kasali was the village's emblem of struggle, young, impoverished, and dismissed as unworthy. Yet Kenny's devotion to him was fierce. She stole from her mother to help him and even cooked meals in secret to sustain him. Mrs. Kala, though fatigued by Kenny's antics, saw a spark in Taiwo that gave her hope. She poured her dreams into the calmer twin, believing that Taiwo would fulfill the prophecy and rise above the ashes of their misfortune. But the prophecy's shadow lingered, always reminding her of the twin she might one day cast aside. Meanwhile, Taiwo harbored an inexplicable hatred for Kasali. It wasn't something she could justify or explain, it was visceral, like an itch beneath the skin. His very presence irritated her, and she often went out of her way to avoid him. Kenny, however, was utterly devoted to him, and their bond only grew stronger with every obstacle in their path. Mrs. Kala, exasperated and worn thin by Kenny's defiance, tried every trick in her book to separate the two. Yet, no amount of scolding, punishment, or emotional manipulation could sever the invisible thread that connected them. Eventually, Mrs. Kala surrendered. "Let her ruin herself if that's what she wants," she muttered under her breath, resigning herself to the futility of her efforts. Her focus shifted entirely to Taiwo, the calm and obedient daughter who seemed to embody every hope and dream Mrs. Kala clung to. In her eyes, Taiwo was the child of promise, the embodiment of the oracle's prophecy, destined to rise above the storm clouds of their misfortune. Mrs. Kalla's favoritism was not subtle. She openly lavished attention on Taiwo, praising her in front of Kenny at every opportunity. "My Taiwo, the light of this family," she would say, her voice dripping with pride. Kenny, standing in the shadows of her sister's praise, learned to mask her pain with indifference. To her, the scraps of affection she received from her mother weren't worth the effort of vying for more. Instead, she saw her mother's disdain as a gateway to freedom, a chance to escape her suffocating grasp. Taiwo, on the other hand, was troubled by their mother's treatment of Kenny. Though she enjoyed the attention, she couldn't ignore the growing chasm between them. One evening, she gathered the courage to ask, "Mama, why do you treat Kenny differently? She's your daughter too." Mrs. Kalla's response was swift and laden with the weight of prophecy. "Taiwo, you are the chosen one, destined to rise above your sister. Kenny's path is one of struggle and failure. I cannot change what the gods have foretold." The words struck Taiwo like a bolt of lightning. It sounded absurd to her, yet who was she to question the divine? Despite her mother's declarations, Taiwo's heart ached for her twin. She resolved to remain a good sister, even if the gods and her mother seemed to have abandoned Kenny. But the fragile peace between the twins shattered one fateful day during a heated quarrel. In a moment of anger, Taiwo blurted out the prophecy. "You'll never amount to anything, Kenny. Even the gods said so." The words hit Kenny like a dagger to the heart. Betrayal coursed through her veins as she pieced together the years of favoritism, disdain, and mistreatment. It all made sense now: the harsh punishments, the neglect, the constant reminders that she was less than her sister. Her twin, her other half, had known all along and had kept it from her. For days, Kenny withdrew into herself, a storm of bitterness and despair brewing in her heart. If the gods had already decided her fate, then what was the point of fighting it? She plunged deeper into her reckless lifestyle, her actions fueled by a mix of defiance and hopelessness. "If I'm destined to fail, I might as well enjoy the fall," she thought bitterly. One fateful day, as Mrs. Kalla returned from the market, burdened by the weight of her struggles and sorrows, her frail body gave out. She collapsed in the village square, and by the time help arrived, it was too late. The villagers mourned her passing, and her daughters, despite their differences, grieved deeply. As Mrs. Kalla was laid to rest beneath the shade of an ancient tree, the air was heavy with unspoken words and unresolved pain. The twins stood side by side, their mother's death marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Little did they know, their destinies were far from written, and the shadows of the prophecy would continue to haunt them. Months after Mrs. Kalla's death, a surprising transformation began to unfold between Taiwo and Kenny. Grief, which could have driven them further apart, instead drew them closer. They leaned on each other to navigate the stormy waters of life, their bond growing stronger with each shared struggle. Despite their hardships, Kenny often reminded her twin sister to take things easy. "You're not built for this rugged life, Taiwo," she would say, a protective tone softening her words. Kenny took it upon herself to shoulder most of the burden, working tirelessly to ensure Taiwo lived as comfortably as possible. Kenny's unwavering dedication erased the bitterness of the past. Taiwo, moved by her sister's sacrifice, broke down one day, pleading for forgiveness for her earlier behavior. But Kenny, the elder and wiser of the two, simply pulled her into a warm embrace. "There's nothing to forgive," she said gently. "We're sisters. Nothing will change that." For a time, life settled into a quiet rhythm. The twins found solace in each other's company, their laughter echoing in the evenings as they strolled through the village. One day, they stumbled upon a grand building that towered over the modest homes surrounding it. Its walls gleamed in the setting sun, exuding wealth and power. The sight stopped them in their tracks. "Who could have built something like this here?" Taiwo asked, her voice tinged with wonder. "Someone very rich, obviously," Kenny replied with a shrug, though her curiosity was evident. Taiwo's mischievous side bubbled up as she suggested, "Let's create a scene. Maybe the owner will come out." Kenny shook her head, smiling. "That's childish. Let's go home." Despite Kenny's dismissal, Taiwo couldn't shake her fascination with the mysterious mansion. Every time she returned from the market, she made a point of passing by the house, hoping to catch a glimpse of its enigmatic owner. The entire village was abuzz with speculation. Who could afford such opulence in their humble community? One evening, as Taiwo strolled past the house, a firm but gentle hand caught her by the wrist. She spun around, her heart racing, and froze. Standing before her was a tall, handsome man whose presence seemed almost surreal. It took her a moment to recognize him, Kasali, the once scruffy and struggling boy who had been inseparable from Kenny. "Taiwo!" he exclaimed, pulling her into a hug before she could react. The warmth of his embrace was familiar, yet everything else about him was unrecognizable. Gone were the tattered clothes and weary eyes. In their place was a confident, polished man who radiated success. Taiwo stepped back, her mind reeling. "Kasali, is it really you?" "With all my heart, it's me," Kasali said, his smile lighting up his face. He led her into the grand house, and for the next hour they reminisced about old times. Kasali's gratitude poured out like a river as he recounted how Kenny had stolen food and money to support him during his darkest days. "I owe her my life," he said earnestly. But as the conversation deepened, Kasali couldn't ignore Taiwo's uncharacteristic silence. The noisy, stubborn girl he remembered now seemed reserved, even hesitant. "What's wrong, Taiwo? You're not yourself," he asked, searching her face. Caught off guard, Taiwo quickly composed herself. "I'm just surprised, that's all. You were the last person I expected to see." She smiled, though her mind was spinning. Before she left, Kasali dropped a bombshell. "Taiwo, do you think it's too late for us to pick up where we left off?" he asked. "Take your time to think about it," he added, handing her a bundle of money. "Share this with Kenny, please." Taiwo returned home, the weight of the encounter pressing down on her. As usual, Kenny wasn't back yet, busy with her endless hustling. Sitting alone, Taiwo grappled with a whirlwind of thoughts. Should she tell Kenny about Kasali? Could she even bring herself to do so? Memories of his charm, his wealth, and the prophecy gnawed at her. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, "You are destined to be richer than your sister." But now, here was Kasali, Kenny's old flame, standing tall and prosperous. If Kenny married him, wouldn't the prophecy be wrong? Or, Taiwo wondered, could it be that I meant to marry Kasali instead? Her thoughts spiraled, torn between guilt and ambition. When Kenny finally came home, weary and disheveled, Taiwo plastered on a smile. "Welcome back," she said, her voice betraying none of the storm raging inside her. But deep down, a seed of doubt had already taken root, and it would soon grow into something far darker. Unbeknownst to Kenny, Taiwo had been visiting Kasali frequently. Their bond had grown stronger, but not in a way that brought joy to Taiwo's heart. As Kasali fondly recalled the past and Kenny's sacrifices for him, Taiwo found herself seething with resentment. Each story of Kenny's kindness felt like a dagger, a reminder that Kasali's loyalty might still lie with her sister. Taiwo began to believe that Kenny didn't deserve Kasali's affection or his success. "Stop bringing up the past," Taiwo had told Kasali during one of their meetings. "We're in a new chapter now. Let's focus on us." Kasali, ever gentle and accommodating, agreed. Taiwo manipulated the situation further, convincing Kasali that it was best he didn't visit her house. "Kenny doesn't like you, and I don't want her to feel uncomfortable," she lied. Kasali, trusting Taiwo, respected her wishes. But fate had other plans. One evening, Kasali decided to stop by their home unannounced. Kenny, who had stayed home that day, suddenly felt the need to use the bathroom just as Kasali arrived. Hearing a knock, she called out, "Who's there?" But before she could answer the door, Taiwo rushed out to intercept. When Taiwo saw Kasali standing there, her heart nearly stopped. Quickly recovering, she stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, pulling him aside. "I was just passing by and thought I'd say hello," Kasali replied, his expression puzzled. Taiwo's voice was tight with urgency. "I told you not to come here. Let's walk, quickly. She led him away, deflecting his questions with vague reassurances. The close call rattled her, but she managed to maintain her composure. Kenny, meanwhile, remained oblivious, though she felt a nagging sense that something was amiss. As the days passed, Taiwo's plans grew more ambitious. She and Kasali began secretly planning their wedding. Taiwo insisted on a simple ceremony, likely to avoid drawing too much attention. But Kenny, curious about her sister's sudden preoccupation, finally confronted her. "Who are you marrying, Taiwo?" she asked one evening. Caught off guard, Taiwo fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Kenny, please forgive me. I should have told you, but I'm pregnant," she lied. "Kasali and I had to keep it quiet because of the situation." Kenny felt as though the ground beneath her had crumbled. Her twin, the person she trusted most, had betrayed her in the worst way imaginable. Yet, seeing Taiwo's supposed vulnerability, she suppressed her anger and walked away. Alone, she wept for days, mourning not just the loss of Kasali but the bond she thought she shared with her sister. Despite her heartbreak, Kenny demanded to meet Kasali. "I need closure," she said. But Taiwo, desperate to keep her secrets intact, spun another lie. "I've begged Kasali to come, but he can't face you." "He's too ashamed," she said, feigning sorrow. As the wedding approached, Taiwo went to extreme lengths to keep Kenny out of the picture. On the wedding day, she poisoned Kenny's food, ensuring her sister would remain unconscious. By the time Kenny woke up, 2 days had passed, and the wedding was long over. The villagers were already abuzz, and Kenny pieced together the truth. Taiwo had married Kasali. Rage boiled within her, but Kenny chose not to confront Taiwo immediately. Instead, she visited her sister's new home days later. Taiwo greeted her with hostility, her words dripping with venom. "Stay away from my house, Kenny. You're not welcome here." The betrayal cut deeper with every passing day. Kenny couldn't understand how her sister, whom she had loved and protected, could do this to her. But fate, it seemed, wasn't finished weaving its tangled web. One day, Taiwo was returning from the market when she spotted Kasali along the road, surrounded by workers. Assuming Taiwo wanted to speak privately, Kasali dismissed them. "My love, what's wrong? You don't look well," he said, concern etched on his face. But it wasn't Taiwo who stood before him, it was Kenny. "Kasali, do you know who I am?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with pain. Kasali's face fell as realization dawned. "Kenny," he whispered. The air between them was heavy with unspoken truths. Kenny demanded answers, her voice trembling as she recounted her years of waiting and heartbreak. Kasali, stunned and guilt-ridden, apologized profusely. They talked at length, unraveling the knots of their shared history. By the end, Kenny made a desperate plea. "Please, don't tell Taiwo. She'll go to any lengths to destroy me." Kasali agreed, and the two began meeting in secret. But secrets have a way of surfacing. One evening, Taiwo spotted Kenny near her home. Panic set in as she realized Kenny might uncover her lies. Driven by desperation and paranoia, she did the unthinkable. She paid 2 men to get rid of her sister for good. Their task was chillingly clear: bury Kenny alive. For 6 days, Kasali paced restlessly, his heart heavy with worry. Kenny had not shown up at their usual meeting spot, and her sudden disappearance gnawed at him like an unrelenting storm. Each passing day intensified his unease, yet Taiwo carried on as though nothing had happened. Her laughter rang through the house, her demeanor light, almost celebratory. Kasali's suspicions grew sharper with every hour. Unbeknownst to him, Kenny was enduring a harrowing ordeal. Buried alive by hired hands, she lay in darkness, her breaths shallow and labored. Time became meaningless as the weight of the earth pressed down on her, and despair threatened to claim her spirit. But on the 7th day, a twist of fate intervened. 2 men, scavenging for bones to use in their rituals, stumbled upon her shallow grave. As they unearthed what they believed to be a corpse, they were met with a faint, miraculous gasp of life. Startled but intrigued, they pulled her free and left her at the edge of the forest, where she was eventually discovered by villagers. Kasali, who had secretly been conducting his own search, rushed to her side the moment he heard the news. Seeing Kenny alive yet frail brought tears to his eyes. He arranged for her to receive the best treatment possible, nursing her back to health with unwavering care. Despite the betrayal and pain, Kenny remained silent about her ordeal. With Kasali's support, she decided to keep her survival a secret. "Let her think her plan worked," Kenny said, her eyes gleaming with determination. "I'll show her that I'm not so easily defeated." Meanwhile, Taiwo reveled in her false victory, believing her sister was gone for good. The weight of her secret lifted. She went about her days with a newfound ease. But Kenny had other plans. Instead of hiding away, she decided to turn the tables. Every evening, she visited Kasali in the very house Taiwo called her own, savoring the irony of her presence in her sister's space. At first, Kenny kept her visits discreet, but soon, she began leaving subtle signs of her presence. A scarf left on a chair, a faint trace of perfume. Taiwo dismissed these as figments of her imagination, but the cracks in her certainty began to show. One day, as she returned from the market, she thought she caught a glimpse of Kenny disappearing around a corner. The sight chilled her to the bone. "No," Taiwo whispered to herself, clutching her basket tightly. "It's impossible. I was there. I saw her buried." Yet, the sightings continued, each one more vivid than the last. Kenny, emboldened by Taiwo's unraveling, began to make her presence more pronounced. She lingered just long enough to ensure Taiwo saw her, her shadow flitting through the periphery of her twin's vision like a ghost come to haunt her. Taiwo's paranoia reached a breaking point. Convinced she was either losing her mind or facing a supernatural punishment, she finally confessed her crime to Kasali. "I buried her," she sobbed, her voice trembling with guilt. "I thought I was rid of her, but now she's back, and I can't escape her." Kasali, feigning shock, took her to the village chiefs to expose the truth. There, before the gathered elders and villagers, Kenny stepped forward, her face no longer hidden. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Taiwo crumpled to her knees, her worst fears realized. Kenny was alive, and her torment had been a calculated game of retribution. The chiefs demanded justice, turning to Kasali for a decision. Whom would he choose now that he knew the full truth? Taiwo, in a desperate bid to secure her place, claimed she was carrying Kasali's child. Torn by the weight of her words, Kasali reluctantly chose Taiwo, believing her lie. But the truth has a way of revealing itself. Weeks later, Kasali discovered that Taiwo's pregnancy was a fabrication, a last-ditch effort to hold on to him. Furious and betrayed, he sent Taiwo away, severing all ties with her. Broken and humiliated, Taiwo faded into the shadows, her once bright future reduced to ashes. Kasali returned to Kenny, his heart heavy with regret. He begged her forgiveness, promising to make amends for the pain he had caused. Though Kenny's wounds ran deep, she found solace in Kasali's sincerity. Their bond, scarred but unbroken, began to heal, proving that even amidst betrayal and darkness, love and resilience could prevail.